Okay, this is Mary Ann Sison and Doug Mansfield at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, Jackson County campus. Today is November 4th, 2004, and we are interviewing Mr. Robert DeLay for the Veterans History Project. Okay, Mr. DeLay, why don't we start at the beginning and you tell us how you came to be in the Marines in 1968.
Well, I didn't switch my draft classification over. I was married and had 2 kids, and anyhow I got Uncle Sam sent me a greeting card. So anyhow, I went to the induction center for my physical, and we were sitting out in the waiting room, and then each branch of the service come out there and made their pitch for who wanted to be in that particular service. So my uncle had been in the Marine Corps back in Korea, and I pretty much idolized my uncle. So I said, well, Marine Corps sounds pretty sensible. So I said, well, so I enlisted right there, and that was the start of it. And then we sat there for a few hours, and then that evening the bus took us to the airplane. We was in Kansas City, Missouri. The bus took us to the airplane. The airplane stopped at Las Vegas. We stopped there for a few minutes to refuel, and we ended up in San Diego, California, and that's where I entered the Marine Corps, in San Diego. And went through boot camp. I think it was 13 weeks. And at the end of 13 weeks, we graduated, and they told us what our military occupational specialty was, and I was a machine gunner. I'd put in to be a mechanic, and being a machine gun, that was as close as I got. So anyhow, we went to infantry training school for 5 weeks of training with weapons, and then after that they sent us to Okinawa, Japan, and then from there we stayed a couple of days and got all of our shots and everything, and then they sent us to Da Nang, Vietnam, and then I was there for almost 12 months, and I got wounded, and I was in the hospital for 4 to 5 weeks in country. Then I got to come home on leave. Then for some reason I can't explain, I extended for another tour and went back over for another tour, and I just lucked out and got my same unit that I'd been with before. So I think maybe the man upstairs had something to do with that, I don't know, but that's how I got back over there the second time. And we spent 80 to 90% of the time in the bush, in the jungle. When we were back in the rear, we stood guard, and of course we had jobs to do back in the rear, keeping our weapons and our equipment up to where they were in good shape, trying to get it in good shape as we could. And sometimes they would send us out on what they called airborne pacifiers. The recon units in the area would find the enemy somewhere, or they'd, in a general area, and they would load us up, maybe a platoon or 2 platoons, and send us up in the helicopters out to that area, and they'd drop us in, and then we would stay out there till we either found them, or we would, if we didn't find them within a certain amount of time or whatever, they'd bring us back in. But we spent most of our time in the Quezon Mountains out south of Da Nang, and it was the Arizona Territory, but most of the time in the Quezon Mountains. And so we'd out of a week, we'd probably make contact sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, some days none, other days maybe, sporadic sniper fire or something. but you had to deal with the enemy. You had to deal with the heat. You had to deal with your equipment you had to carry and keep up, and you just you try to keep your morale high. And when we did get resupply, they'd send a mail, and we'd get resupply with food and water and ammunition. But for the most part, we stayed out in the bush most of the time. I'd say, like I say, 80 to 90% of the time. And
when you enlisted in the Marines, did you have a feeling? I mean, you're pretty sure you were going to Vietnam?
Yes, ma'am. We all pretty much knew it's where we were going, because the recruiter, he told us up front. He said, most all of you are going to go to Vietnam, whether you was in the Marine Corps or Army or whatever. So pretty much put it in our minds that's where we're going.
Did you have any preconceived ideas about what you were going to find there?
No, I was almost 25 years old, and I was the oldest person in my company. And when we were going through boot camp and stuff, I didn't have no idea what was ahead. So, and I was probably just as scared as all of them. I mean, going through boot camp and so.
Tell us about your first impressions of Vietnam. When you get off the plane at Da Nang.
Okay, they told us in Okinawa when we started for Da Nang something called culture shock, and they told us that when we landed, it was going to be like you stepped back in time, or you stepped into another dimension. And they said there might be mortar fire hitting the airfield when you come in. There might be firefights going on when you come in. They didn't know. So anyhow, they told us that probably about 10 minutes we'd be landing in Da Nang, the plane started circling, and so then we were cleared to come in, and it was quiet. But when we were sitting in the plane, of course it was air conditioned, and they opened those doors up, and we stepped out, and it about took my breath away. The heat, the humidity, the smell. I'm talking, diesel, fuel, just the smell of the food. The people had a smell to them because of what they ate. Their diet, the fish, and the stuff that they ate, and it was just everybody's going every which way, and they finally put us in an area, and we were told to wait because people from different units were going to come and pick us up. Because so we did, and it was hot. We were all white, pale looking, and most of the people around there were dark and sun-tanned, and because they didn't have no choice. It was hot, and it was. And so then when I got picked up to where I was going, we got there, it was about probably 6 o'clock in the evening, and they issued us flak jackets. I was a machine gunner, so I got issued a machine gun, ammunition, all the equipment I needed, 45 pistol, canteens, stuff like that, and they sent me right directly to a unit. I was a replacement, and I was scared to death. And that later on that evening, they had got me pretty much where I was supposed to be, and it wasn't probably about an hour after I got there we got a firefight. And I didn't know. all I did was get down. They told me to get down, and then just in a few seconds it was over with. So I got initiated into combat in about 3 hours after I landed. So,
what did you think?
I didn't have time to think. I went from scared to petrified. I didn't know. Then after it was over with, they checked around to make sure anybody wasn't hit or hurt. And of course it was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, but I couldn't wait till the next morning when the sun come up just to see where I was at. It was a shock out there too. So
can you tell us what it was like packing up for your first mission?
Well, when where I was at, we didn't carry a whole lot of gear because we was on the ground all the time. I was in a unit. It was called a combined action program. It's a unit to where we were supposed to help the Vietnamese people. We were supposed to help them, show them how to plant vegetables, how to keep clean, how to do this, how to do that. And that's what the program was initially. And after I got there, we weren't doing that. All we were doing was running patrols and stuff during the day and setting up ambushes at night, because the North Vietnamese or the Viet Cong were trying to come into these villages for resupply and to try to get the people to come over to their side. And if they resisted, they would kill the village chief, and that pretty much that's like pulling the head off the chicken. Pull the head off the chicken, it's going to die. So if they killed the village chief, most of the people in the village would fall in line to the Viet Cong's way of thinking and help them. So we didn't pack a lot of gear. We carried a lot of ammunition because we'd get into firefights and we'd have sniper fire and stuff like that. So usually during the day we would set up security in a small house somewhere. We'd put security out, and then some of us would sleep, take turns sleeping. We'd clean our weapons. We'd write letters, and then towards the end of the evening, before it got dark, we would plan our ambush site for the night. And then when it started getting dark, we'd move out to our ambush site at night before it got dark. And I was afraid all the time. And then sometimes I'd get so tired from not sleeping, I wouldn't be afraid, because I didn't know what I wanted worse. I wanted sleep, or I just, So sometimes you just kind of like a robot. You just did it because you didn't get a lot of sleep over there. And I guess, I don't know if you ever get used to not sleeping, but there's times that you fall asleep and don't realize it. I mean, then you wake up, and so men have lost their lives because they fell asleep on watch. They didn't get killed, but the VC or whatever would sneak through the lines and take someone else's life. So
can you describe setting up an ambush?
Yeah. If we was going to go into an ambush site that evening, we would all have a meeting that afternoon during the day, and we'd draw in the dirt where we could just, brush away after we got through, and everybody knew where they were supposed to be in that ambush. And our favorite ambush was an L-shaped ambush, And if you had a trail going down through an area, you would set up an L-shaped ambush along that trail, and you would let most of them come into it, and then you just open up, and sometimes you might let them pass, depending on how many there were, and sometimes you didn't ever see nobody. There's been nights and nights we'd set up an ambush and never see nobody. And then when you set in an ambush, if you had to go to the bathroom or you had to do something, you just either didn't or you just did right there where you was laying. And there was times we tied a string to each of our hands. So if the man on down at the end heard something, he'd tug at that line and make sure everybody was alert. And so there was different things, there was different ways to set off an ambush. If somebody was coming through it, somebody would open fire, or somebody would pop a pop-up flare, or there's just a whole number of ways of setting off an ambush. But
what did you do at Fubai?
Okay, I was in the CAP program. I was in a CAP unit. There were one squad of Marines, which consisted of 11 Marines and one Navy corpsman. And then the Republic of Vietnam was supposed to supply us with a platoon of ARVN soldiers, but we never got a platoon. We might have got 4 to 6 soldiers from the Vietnamese. And then that's when we would go during the day, and we would check IDs and run patrols during the day, and then at night we would send them off. The Vietnamese soldiers would send them off. Most of them lived in the villages. It's kind of like an 8 to 5 job for them. But we'd send them home, and then we'd go to our ambush site at night. And then we would join up with them the next day at a predetermined point, because we didn't trust them.
Can you explain why you didn't trust them? What was the situation in Vietnam that led to that?
Well, I didn't find out till after I'd come home a few months that we were fighting the 3rd largest army in the world. But then most of your Viet Cong were North Vietnamese, but they were like the reconnaissance units of the North Vietnamese. They would come into the villages and try to recruit people for the North Vietnamese, and so you didn't know who was who. We had a little exchange there on our hill back in our rear. We had a little PX where you buy food and stuff like that, and then you had a barber shop, and you had a laundry. Well, the barber shop had like 4 different Vietnamese people working in it, and we'd get our hair cut there. They just shave our head, and we'd pay them. We'd talk with them. We'd joke with them. They were, we'd give them tips. We'd try to help them out because we felt sorry for them. And one night back in the rear, they had some Viet Cong tried to infiltrate the lines, and they killed them. And the next morning, 1 or 2 of the Viet Cong that they killed was 2 of the barbers that were in the barber shop. So I mean, they could have, if they'd wanted, they could have cut our throats while they were giving us a haircut if they wanted to. But we just never knew who was who. They'd smile to your face and stab you in the back while they were talking to you. I mean, that's that type of mentality.
At Fubai, was that one of the places where people were trying to infiltrate and sway the people to the other side?
Well, Fubai was our rear. That's where our command post and stuff was, and we lived out in the bush, and each day we would get resupplied, and we'd try to get one hot meal a day they'd bring us. And but Fubai was we were the only Marines left in that area after the Tet Offensive, because Fubai was right at one spot, and then on down the road, I don't know, 15, 20 miles was Hue City. So we were they call it an AO, area of responsibility. So you had like 1,000 clicks of area of responsibility. That's a lot of area. And so we would, that was our area that we lived in and patrolled and set up ambushes in. And but we would call our rear when we'd get to a predetermined site each morning, and they would bring resupply and food and ammunition out to us shortly after 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'd go back, the trucks would go back to the rear, and then we'd get our food and our ammunition, and we'd be ready for that night, set up ambushes again. It was just a daily thing. You know, get up, eat, clean your weapons, write letters, sleep, and that night you go out and set up ambushes. And maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week during the day you'd run patrols, check IDs, and that's when we had the Vietnamese soldiers with us. If we had somebody that looked suspicious, we'd let them question them, because if they slapped them around or they did anything like that to the civilians, we weren't liable, or that we didn't get in trouble, because all the stuff they was doing to us, but you know, heaven help us if we hurt one of them.
Tell me about Hue City.
Okay, I never was completely in Hue City. Our area of responsibility was right up to the edge of Hue City, and it was really completely tore up after the Tet Offensive, and there wasn't much going on there. Just people coming in and out of there along the highway, and but sometimes we'd set up ambushes around the river and stuff like that, and sometimes we'd go off the beaten path and go off back in and just check things out. Just probably really wasn't supposed to be back there, but we did. So, but it was, if you ever seen pictures of it on the news stuff, I mean, it was pretty much flattened.
Yeah, they talk about it as if it was once a
yeah, it was a beautiful place at one time. That's what I've seen pictures, but
what about Happy Valley and Arizona Territory?
Okay, Happy Valley and the Arizona Territory was kind of sandy, a lot, not no jungle, just a lot of sand and a lot of hills and a lot of. I was there a few times, just what they call the airborne pacifiers. They'd drop us in and we'd search and destroy. A couple times we got into firefights and stuff, and then there was 2 or 3 times that we went out there and didn't find nothing. We did find remains of people we didn't know ours and of course we didn't do nothing with them, but they were but it was mostly they'd fly us in helicopters and we'd search the areas. But the Happy Valley, they'd put us in there, and then we'd run patrols, and then we would set up ambushes, and most of the time we wouldn't find nothing. they could see us and hear us coming. I mean, and it's their country, so even in the rain, you know, you see a lot of them when it's raining. They did more work out there in the rain than they would on a pretty day. I mean, they didn't stop them, so we were pretty much at their mercy.
What did you do at Arizona Territory?
Just ran patrols, and we weren't really out there any length of time. Just they might drop us in that morning and pull us out that evening, and they'd give us grid coordinates to go from point A to point B. If we didn't find anything, we'd call in. They'd extract us out.
But how long did you stay doing these search and destroy or pacifying missions?
It depended. If we had intelligence that showed that they, had been there hours before us, they'd probably keep us in there 2 or 3 days. Or it just depended on what we found. If we ran into contact or whatever, it just depended. And then they'd pull us back out and maybe send us somewhere else or put us doing something else.
Can you tell us how you received your Purple Hearts? You have 2.
Well, both of them was from shrapnel. We were going up, we were in the Quaison Mountains, and we were going, it seemed like they always dropped us down in the valley, and then we had to hump up to where we were going. But anyhow, we were going up this trail, and you might move 100 yards in a day. I'm talking about a whole company. You're spread out, you're carrying all of your weight, you might move 50 yards in a day, depending on the weather and depending on the heat. It was always hot. But the guy in front of me tripped a booby trap, and it blew him up, and I caught shrapnel in my leg and on my arm, and it didn't kill him, but I think he lost a leg over it. And they called the medevac choppers in, and they evacuated us on what they call a jungle penetrator. It's like a V, and it's got a shaft up through the middle. They drop it down through the canopy, and it spreads out, and they set you on it, and they tie you on it, and it pulls you up through the canopy, up to the helicopter. So they pulled myself and this other guy up there and medevaced us. I don't remember a whole lot because they'd give me a little morphine, and I didn't even know I was hit till someone said, "You're bleeding," because something just brushed past my leg. That seems funny. 30-some years later, I can remember, but I just remember it's like you're walking down a trail and you hit a limb or something that brushes by your. But after I looked down there and I seen the blood, then it started hurting. It started, but then the corpsman gave us some morphine, and they pulled us out and took us to the USS Sanctuary. It was a hospital ship. And the second time, gosh, I can't remember. We was out there in the Quaison Mountains again, and we got in a firefight. I don't know if it was from a mortar round or what, but I caught some kind of shrapnel. It was real fine, and I still got some of it in my leg. After all these years, they said it'd worked itself to the top. I don't think it ever has, but I don't feel like I deserved either one of them. But I guess they thought I did. You hear people say, I won this, I don't think I won anything. I think if I had to, if I earned it, fine. If I didn't, I sure didn't win nothing. But it didn't keep me from coming back, because I stayed in country. It was just superficial. I mean, I stayed in the hospital for like 3 weeks, and then the first time was like a little over 5 weeks. But I went back.
Was there any time while you were in Vietnam that you relaxed? You said you had sometimes there were some good times. It wasn't all stress and fear. And
they had there was a TV show on there for several years, China Beach. Several of us went to China Beach for a week, R&R. We laid around and drank and swam out in the ocean and ate, took showers. I think I might have took 2 or 3 showers every day to try to get clean. But we laid around and they had movies and they had the USO people there to, to kind of make you feel at home. You write letters and take pictures, and so it was a pretty good time.
What did you write home about? Did you let them know what it was like, really?
Well, our CO told us not to tell them everything. I'd tell my mom and dad that everything was okay. I was doing good. I'd lost some weight, but I was doing good, and I'd tell them that we made contact with the enemy a few times, and everybody was okay, and just how's my car, and how's my dog, and how's this, and how's that, and they didn't really want us to write anything graphic home. I'm sure some of the guys did, but
what was going on at home? Anything?
No, nothing really. Well, I got divorced from my first wife. This is before I went in the Marine Corps, and I was married to my second wife, and she was doing good. She was staying with her parents and working, and she said she'd every day she'd wait by the mailbox for a letter, and I wasn't the best letter writer because we was always moving somewhere, and we'd get somewhere, I'd be so tired, we'd be out in the jungle, it'd be raining and this and that, and you couldn't. So I might have wrote a dozen letters all the time I was over there. But I tried to write them at length. I mean, I'd maybe write 3 or 4 pages because I'm not a writer. And but they'd send me a care package about every 3 months. That thing, it had hot sauce, it had white socks, it had fruit, canned or orange, like mandarin oranges in the can. Chewing gum, just stuff to, I guess, make you feel a little bit more at home. And they sent me a cake one time. When it got there, it was all. Well, we still ate it. It sure didn't look like one, but we ate it.
Did you have any sense of the bigger picture while you were in Vietnam? Why were you there? Why did you think you were there?
I don't know. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. All they told us was we were going to Vietnam to help support their efforts. And the longer I was there, we were the only ones making the effort. We had my machine gun. I had 2 barrels for it because he had interchangeable barrels. And you could look down my barrel inside, and it had pits and chunks blowed out of it. But the South Vietnamese Army, the guys that were in the South Vietnamese Army, it's like the Minutemen. They lived. If we're in a certain area, the South Vietnamese army would live, the men, they lived in that village. We would come out of the bush, and maybe the next day they'd let us go down to Da Nang to go to the exchange, and maybe, you know, they would be standing around in brand new jungle boots, brand new jungle utilities, carrying a brand new M16 rifle, leaned up against the side of a building talking to the girlfriend or something. And here we are, our butts hanging out of our clothes, holes in our pants, boots, I mean, just half the soles wore off of them. I went through like 3 pair of boots while I was over there. I mean, that's the mud, the water, they rotted. But we couldn't hardly get no resupply. Nothing like what they got. So, forgot the question. I was getting off on a tangent here.
I was asking why were you there, and you said to support them, but you were doing all of the.
But it seemed like we ended up doing everything, and I don't mean that ugly, but you know, it just seemed like they switched roles with us, and we wouldn't get really no support from them. Why should they endanger their lives when we were out there doing everything? Maybe we were overzealous or something, maybe, but I mean, they train us to come over there and, well, kill. And at a certain point, once you get past a certain point, that's what you're going to do. That's what you want to do. That's what they send you out into an area that's a free fire zone, which means there's no friendlies out there. So whoever you come in contact with is the enemy. You're going to take them out or get taken out. And our morale it'd get low sometimes because just that simple fact that I told you. We'd go through piles of clothes at our supply. We'd come out of the bush, we'd go down to supply the next day, try to find some better clothes to wear. There weren't none. There was piles of breeches and piles of blouses, and you'd have to dig through and find some that had smaller holes than what you had on. So, I'm not exaggerating. The only time I had any kind of decent gear was when I traded some stuff with the 101st Airborne there in between Phu and Hue City, because they had a camp there, Camp Eagle. And our area of responsibility was coincided right along with their lines, and we'd go up there once in a while and eat breakfast in the morning or noon chow, and we got to know some people up there, and we'd trade we might have some war souvenirs, or something. We'd trade it for a pair of boots or, something. And, but as far as the Marine Corps went, we got seconds. The Army got the best, and I'm not nitpicking the Army or nothing like that, but they got the best, and we got what was left. We had old stuff, but we still did the job. We didn't have much choice. Adapt and overcome, I guess that's what you say. I ain't getting too wild on them.
No.
I mean, I get carried away.
What did you do with the amphibious forces?
Okay, that was just the CAP unit or the CAP program. It came under the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force. They did have, the main base was there at Phu, but when I was there, they had pulled all that stuff out. And the only Marines, like I said, the only Marines that were there were in these they call them CAGs, Combined Action Group. it was a combined action program, but we was in a combined action group, a CAG, and there was probably 7 or 8 different little units around. You didn't, the civilian out there didn't know where we were. There might have been one there and 2 over here, but we were on our own, per se. If we needed, if we got to firefight and we needed support, we had Camp Eagle for helicopter support and artillery, and right off we had naval gunfire. We had medevac there at Camp Eagle. And see, that's another thing people don't realize. I don't know about the Army, but in the Marine Corps, in our units, everybody had to know how to call in an airstrike, a medevac, artillery. You had to know how to use the radio and how to read a map and how to give grid coordinates and how to call in all those different things. So, I mean, we wasn't out there just young and dumb and wanted to shoot a rifle. You had to have some smarts too, and it's kind of hard to do sometimes when you're under fire trying to figure out the grid coordinates and call in a. So.
Did anybody, when you joined your unit, did anybody try to teach you what to expect and show you the ropes? Or?
Yeah. They were, most of them were pretty friendly. You had some they call them salts. You know, you're the old salt, and you're the one want to spend there the longest. And they pretty much, you know, like they knew everything. But I mean, most of the guys would say, you know, follow us, do what we say, and you'll be okay. So that's what I did. And even some of the old salts, they came around because their time was getting short, and they didn't want a new guy coming in and causing them to get shot or something like that. And I can understand that because I was the same way when I became salty and been there for a long time. I didn't want to, if I was going to get blown away, I want to be on my own account, not because somebody didn't know what they was doing, you know. So, but it was a pretty good transition, I guess, for me. I mean, because I'm hard-headed, but when it comes to something like that, I listen. It don't take but one time for me to learn. So.
What did you mentioned that when you came back to the States, you were an instructor for a little while, and so what did you tell the people you were training about Vietnam?
Well, I pretty much told them just like it was. I said, y'all, most of the guys that was over there in Vietnam, most of the guys that I trained were from 17 to 20. And they'd ask me, and I'd tell them, I said, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I said, the more training you could absorb here from me and from all the other training you're going to have, I said, it just might bring you home. Because I said, it brought me home. I said, I got hit twice, but it wasn't nothing life-threatening. It was just some shrapnel. But I said, the more training you can have and the more you can absorb it, probably try to bring you home. It would bring you home, you know. I said, don't try to be a hero. I said, just do your job the best that you can do it. It's all anybody can ever ask out of somebody. And I said, and see, we really didn't ever have a discipline problem with anybody, because we were told to go do something, take that hill or do this. You didn't whine around, you did it. I mean, the Marine Corps' got a motto: don't ask why, just do or die. And I guess when you come out of boot camp and you graduate and you're a Marine, that's common. You know, you know what might happen. So I mean, I might go out here on the way home now and get hit in a wreck and die, but I mean, when it's your time, it's your time. So whether you're in the Marine Corps, Army, a civilian, or whatever, so I kind of looked at it like that.
What you got, Doug?
Did that make any sense at all?
Oh, yeah. Lots of sense. Lots of sense. Do you have anything else you want to tell us? Anything else you want on record in Washington?
No, I'm just proud that I served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. And one day before I die, I want to get up to Washington and see the wall and see all the stuff up there. Not just the wall, but I think if I go up there and can be around it, I might could heal a little better. But I want to see everything. I want to see the Marine barracks. I want to see the White House. I want to. So, but I'm just proud to serve my country and proud to be able to sit here and do this. And it's maybe something I've said or something, might help somebody else later on in future years or something. That's all I'm not a philosopher. I can't even spell it. So.
Well, thank you, Mr. DeLay.
I'll just have him sit there.
Oh, sunburn?
Okay, tape's rolling.
Okay, tell us about the different awards and insignias.
Okay, I don't know if you can see my insignias. Can you see them? All right, this is down at the bottom of my private first class. Then I went from that to Lance Corporal, then Corporal, Sergeant, then Staff Sergeant. So we got E6, E5, E4, E3, E2, then privates at E1. So over 8 years, I made it to the E6, and this K-bar I brought home from Vietnam. I carried that all the time I was over there. It's kind of old and beat up looking, and that's one of my dog tags. This is the insignia I had when I was in the CAP program, and that's just a Marine Corps, Silver Marine Corps little medallion. Buddy of mine got me for years ago, and my recon wings and my scuba head up here. It's just that I was what do you call it? I was certified. Talk all this time, can't think of words. All right, then my ribbons. That's my Purple Heart. I got 2 of them with the star. Then my Navy Achievement Medal with Combat V. Then my Combat Action ribbon. That's like the in the Army. Their combat. What do you call it in the Army? The rifle.
CIB.
Combat Infantry Badge. Okay, that's equal to the Army's infantry badge. Then I got a Presidential Unit Citation. Then I think it's a Navy Unit Commendation, and then a Meritorious Unit Commendation. And that's my Good Conduct Medal for 8 years. And that's our Fire Watch ribbon. We call it Fire Watch ribbon.
National Defense.
Yeah, National Defense. Then my Vietnam campaign. Then my Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. Then this is a Vietnamese commendation, unit commendation. Then this is one's a campaign and the other one's this Vietnamese, what's the green and white one?
Vietnamese service.
When you get old, you get senile, I can't remember. And this is my marksmanship badges. I got expert several years. I think it's 4th award. And I got 4th award on the pistol. And that's about it. I was in the 1st Marine Division over there. So it's not much. It's just my mementos from being over there, or being in the Marine Corps, and that's what I ended up with.
What was your unit commended for?
We went on several operations and campaigns, and they end up getting they give that unit a commendation or a streamer for their flag, and whoever's in that unit earns a ribbon.
Were you around Quezon when the siege was done?
I had some good friends. I had a friend of mine, he was there. He won the Navy Cross. I didn't meet him till I was an instructor there, Camp Pendleton, but he had won the Navy Cross there. There wasn't too many people left after it was all over with. And he was shot up pretty good. So I was lucky. Like I said, my wounds were just pretty superficial, but I still, they felt like I guess I deserved them. I don't feel like I should have got something like that, but that's about it on the decorations.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us what that is.
Tell us.
Oh, this is CAP 315. That's CAP unit I was in when I was there, stationed at Fubai, and that's when we ran our ambushes at night, and we'd run patrols and stuff during the day and check the people's ID cards, make sure they was from that village and they weren't suspicious looking. And we had I think there's several South Vietnamese Argons with us in this picture, and that's who we worked with.
And your location in the photograph?
I'm without the shirt.
Okay.
The ammunition and stuff.
Yes.
Okay, each day we would go in they call it day pause. That's where we'd set up for the day. We'd take all our ammunition that we all had and put it out and line it up and check it and make sure it was all right. And we'd leave it there and make sure it was all accounted for. And we was all supposed to carry at least a certain amount of stuff. So if we were running short, or we'd get in a firefight the night before or something, we'd call our rear, and they'd bring out resupply for additional ammunition and stuff like that. So, but we'd lay it out there like that pretty much every day in case something happened. It'd be easy to get to. And some of the South Vietnamese people couldn't raffle through our gear and stuff and take something.
Okay.
All right, this is me. We're out there in the Quezon Mountains. It's in the monsoon season, and we're after a North Vietnamese. His name's General Minh, M-I-N-H. And if I can remember, we've been out there probably about a week and a half, and we haven't been able to get resupplied in a few days, and the fog and stuff's got us socked in. We're in there about 5 or 6 miles up in the mountains, so we're just kind of waiting for the fog to clear and kind of stretching our food out and waiting so we can get back out and get picked up and taken back to our rear. We never did find that general. We found caches back up in the mountains. You could probably put this studio in. Hospital supplies, ammunition, mortar rounds, all kind of resupply for the North Vietnamese. All right, I'm here. Well, we were sitting there in a bunker, and we're up on top of a hill, up on top above Freedom Hill there in Da Nang, looking out over Happy Valley. And at night, we'd take turns running patrols down into the Happy Valley, and then sometimes at night we'd set up ambushes out in there, just catch the VCs trying to come in. And there's a place clear at the end of Happy Valley. It's kind of it's mountainous, and there was a gun. They had a gun there. It rolled on roller. It'd come out of the mountain somehow, and it would fire up on the airstrip. We never did find it, not while I was there, but you could hear it. And sometimes we'd be in the bunker there sleeping, and you could hear a boom, then pretty soon you hear a whistle over the top of you, and it'd hit the airstrip. So But that's what I carried over there. That's the original pig right there. You heard Miss Piggy and all the pig this, pig that. That's the original pig right there. 22 pounds of steel. A airborne pacifier. Recon spotted some enemy somewhere, and we don't know where we're going until they drop us off. So we're standing there waiting for the CH-46 Sea Knights to come in and pick us up. And that's all there is on that picture as far as that. But you can see some of the gear we're carrying just to go out on, just a pacifier. If we were going out on say a week or so, we'd have these big old rucksacks on our back, 3 or 4 canteens, and maybe a law. A law is a anti-tank, anti-personnel weapon. It's like the bazooka, 3.5 rocket launcher, but it's made out of fiberglass, and you can extend it out, and it fires 1 round. And they probably weigh about 7 or 8 pounds. They'd be carrying probably maybe 2 or 3 hand grenades. But for this one, we just had probably a few thousand machine gun rounds and just enough rounds for ourselves just to go out and sweep an area. Between Way City and Fubai, this is one of our areas that we went to during the day to clean weapons and write letters and just chow down on some chow and stuff. And this is kind of a lighter side of everything. We was screwing around for the camera. Hopefully the hand grenade didn't go off. But we were just messing around for the camera. We sent these home to our folks, kind of let them know that it wasn't bad all the time over there. 4 months in, because I lost everything. I'm like down to 160 pounds there. I was probably about 170, 80 pounds there.
Okay.
We're out in the Quezon Mountains again. That's a couple of my friends that's in my gun team. One's the A gunner and the other's the ammo humper. And of course he carries his own stuff too, but he helps carry extra machine gun ammo. And we were just had kind of a lull and everything, and it was kind of a pretty day, so we snapped some pictures, just trying to have a little bit of fun.
Who's the hippie? Who's the flag jacket with hippie on it?
Okay, hippie's the one, let's see. He's the one without the shirt. I'm in the middle, and that's hippie without the, and Word is the other one.
Who's Hulk?
Me.
Oh, okay.
They call me Burly Hulk, among other things. This is a CH-46 Sea Knight. It carried a squad, let me back up, it carries a reinforced squad. That means it carries probably 11 men plus all their gear to go out probably for about, say at least a week. So heavy packs, extra ammo, extra everything. And it would carry, now when you say reinforced squad, you might have an attachment from 60 mortar platoon. You might have a man that carried a 60 mortar, and maybe a man that carried 4 or 5 laws with him. So it might be an extra couple of men with extra gear. So that's what's called pretty much a reinforced squad. But that's what we went back and forth to the bush with. That's how we got around. They use 6-bys sometimes. We'd go somewhere, but out to the mountains and out everywhere else, we used the helicopter. That was the main mode of transportation. We were on Hill 34. That's where our rear is for the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And this girl's named Mary, I can't think of her last name. She was some kind of movie star. She made a movie with Elvis Presley. I don't know what her last name was, but she came there to visit along with some other people, and she came around to everybody and hugged our necks and told us that we were doing a good job and let everybody take pictures with her. And so I had the peace sign and the Snoopy sign there, and we all pretty much identified with Snoopy and the Red Baron. So, but the peace sign, I don't know what it meant back then, but there wasn't a lot of peace around there then. But that's what that was. Back to the ranges and stuff like that. So we were pretty much mother and father to them. Yeah. And when I'd have my group on the M60, yeah, I'd have them for 2 weeks, and we ate and slept that machine gun. We'd go out during the day and have a class all day long, and we'd have a night fire till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Then we'd have to come clear back to the armory, spend 2 or 3 hours cleaning them. They might not get in bed till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Have to be right back up at 3:30. I ain't do it no more.
No, I don't think any of us could. Tell us about the money.
Oh, okay. I don't even know, was that $1 or is that a one? Yeah, $1. Okay, this is the MPC currency that they issued to the military when we was over in Vietnam. This is $1. They didn't give us coins because they were too hard to keep up with. So if you bought something for 50 cents, you'd give this to them. They give you back a 50-cent piece of paper that had 50 cents, instead of $1. So this little guy here, this is all my gear I carried when I was up with the CAG unit, with the CAP program there at Fubai.
Did you carry that entire case of sea rations?
No.
Okay.
They would resupply us in the afternoons, but I had an M16, and I carried that M60 because they issued to me the M16, and then found out I was an old 331 machine gunner, so then they put that with me. So I had my ruck pack there and my M60 and the M16. So I had in my flak jacket and helmet. So we're talking probably 50, 60 pounds, something like that. And when we would do something at night, we'd get ready to talk about our ambush sites at night, stuff like that. We'd send these little house boys and these people, these Vietnamese, we'd send them away or home so they didn't know what we were talking about. But somehow they always, next morning, we'd be coming into a place we didn't even tell nobody. Here they'd be, waiting on us. I don't know how they knew where we was going to be. Okay, the day I was supposed to come home, I was still out in the bush. And this helicopter come in late that afternoon and picked me and 3 other guys up. So when we got back to our rear, we went straight to the company office and they gave us our orders. We turned our weapons in, turned all our gear in that we had, and I had stuff in we call them hooches, where we lived. I had stuff in there, I just left it. So we went down to Freedom Hill, down there in Da Nang, and checked in there, and then we had to wait there for a day. So we was there a little over a day, and so on the 3rd day is when the plane came in and picked us up. I came home in my jungle utilities. Some guys got to stop there and change in different uniforms and stuff. I came home in my jungle utilities. I got to clean up and stuff like that, but we came home in our
How were you treated when you got home?
They brought us home at night. It was better the second time because the first time was during the day. People calling us names and stuff and flipping us the bird and stuff. So the second time, I don't know if it happened that way or it happened to be at night, but we came home, there wasn't hardly nobody there around the airport, so it was a pretty decent time coming home the second time. It was good to get home.